Hello, friend. I'm super excited in creating this particular special playlist. This is a playlist that will be based on Django framework. And what makes Django so special? You know very well that this whole world is running after machine learning and its entire family consisting of deep learning, neural network, CNN, and all the different algorithm that comes under the supervised or unsupervised algorithm of ML. I'm going to work on those things as much possible, and the entire thing will be based on Django as a backend framework, because Django purely for Python and all this ML technology will be working on Python, so we can easily connect Django with these algorithms. So that would be my backend. And in the front end, what I'm going to use, front end can be anything. It can be React. Along with React, we can use Next.js, or even it can be Android, or even it can be iOS, because Django would provide the REST framework. So with the help of REST framework, we can come up with any front end application. And not only that, you can also make use of IoT to connect Python Django framework. So that's the beauty of the backend of making use of Django, which none other framework would give you that much flexibility what Django would provide. As you can see right now, I've just downloaded one Django project, and currently I'm inside the virtual environment. So let me show you what do I have right now in this framework. I have just downloaded the very brand new Django framework version 5.1, which is the most latest version till date, and I will try to update as much possible as of my knowledge is concerned. So I have just created a very basic Django project, and nothing I have touched right now. So now I will open the VS Code over here, and as I do that, you will be able to see what this particular Django framework provides. Let me close all these files. So this is what the Django framework is all about. It comes up with a by default manage.py, and the default database is SQLite. In fact, I have a plan to work on SQLite 3, or in future I can even work on some other RDBMS as well. But currently, as you can see, the default database supported by framework is SQLite 3. And manage.py, this particular file, is what we will be using to execute different commands of Django. Now inside this, I have created one project. As you can see right over here, I created a project by the name called KNN, because my last video was also on KNN, which I did a part of it. Another part is still pending, but I couldn't resist my temptation of creating this particular framework and the playlist on this framework. Okay, so that's the reason I thought that I will run the application through an interactive manner, and that's a real life application. I will be working on it. Rather just executing the code in the Colab. Well, I have to execute, but at the same time, what if I can connect that entire piece of algorithm with the Django and make it a real web application? The thing will become more interesting, and it will be really legitimate. So right now I have, as you can see over here, the manage.py. This is the file which we saw just now in the VS Code. So let me come back over here, and one thing I would like to tell you about the Django framework, because it has a big difference compared to other backend framework like Node.js or Laravel or Spring Boot. These can make use of something called MVC, Model View Controller, but in context to specifically Django, we use the term MVT. And I have got this particular image from this particular website, this particular blog, and this web image is very self-explanatory. I will explain you how the flow of algorithm takes place. Now what this is what you will be, here they have come up with 5 steps, and these steps are very nicely explained. But before I get into this step, what I will do is that first I will try to run the Django application, and then I will come back over here. So as you can see, I have connected in my virtual environment, and make sure you always work on virtual environment. Don't directly work on your base platform or base OS. You should always create your own virtual environment. I create a virtual environment by the name called env-ml, because this playlist, this particular series, is focused on machine learning only. So here what I will do is that I will write the command called python, and see I'm giving a call to that file called manage.py, and there is a built-in web server that is called run server, server. This is a built-in environment that Django would provide, which will trigger your web application. And here it goes. Already my Django is active right now. It is saying that you go to the localhost on the port number 8000, you will get your Django running. So let's come to the browser, and let me come to this tab, and I put this URL and I hit enter, and as we can see the Django application, and I said already we are working on Django 5.1, the latest version. That's what you can see right over here. So the default or the basic structure is working very smoothly. Now let's come over here and let's try to understand this particular architecture and why it is called MVT. When you are putting your URL in the browser, that is the first part. So user would type an URL in the browser, and that URL will go to the Django. So Django, at first it will go directly to the framework, okay, when you're hitting the enter. Right now I don't have any REST API. Otherwise there would be a REST API and there will be a front end, so the front end will connect the back end through REST API. But initially at this point of time, since we don't have a REST API, so I'm typing the URL directly in the browser, and as I do that, the request would go to Django. Django would send that data, that particular URL, to a special file called URL. So let me come back to my VS Code. As you can see over here, if I expand this particular project folder, you will find a default file by the name called urls.py. So this particular file is the file what has been mentioned right over here. So here is where the request will come, and it will try to map the URL as given by the user in the browser, and on context to that, the request will be then forwarded to something called view. Well, right now I don't have any file called view, as you can see over here, because I have just downloaded the very basic startup project of Django. I did not create anything called application. Yes, there is a concept in Django that is called application. If I come to this particular file called settings.py, here you will find, let me scroll up, here you will find there is an option called application apps. So Django has this particular feature called application. In a one single project you can create multiple application. I do understand you are not getting my point what I'm trying to say. Don't worry, if you are not aware about application, I will show in my next video about the application part as well. But just for the time being, I will say you that in this particular project, or if you download a Django framework, you will not find any application. So that's the reason why you don't have anything called view, but internally the view is working. So the URL will send the data to the view, and later on when you will create application, you will find over there is a file called view.py, and view.py will decide that the redirection will go to the template or redirection will go to the model. Well, template is actually the interface, the HTML interface through which the user will interact, will pass the data, will see the data. So this is the interface through which the user is going to interact. And the model is going to provide you object relational mapping. That means it is true OOPS format. So you will not be able to put forward your regular RDBMS SQL queries like create, insert, update, delete, alter. Those will not work. Rather, we will create a class, and with the help of the class we'll try to connect our database, and that will provide it in the form of an object relational mapping, and that's what the role of model is. So these are the entire structure of how the application is going to work. So just to rewind once again, URL will be given by the user, that will be received by the Django framework. Django will forward the URL to the url.py file. URL mapping will take place over here, and accordingly it will redirect to the view. The view is going to work like a controller. The controller will decide that whether the redirection will be given to the template or whether we are going to call a model, and eventually the interaction between the user is going to take place. That's how this particular thing is going to work. So as I said, this is the very first basic introductory video to make you understand that right now I'm going to start a complete playlist on the Django framework. So make sure you please, if you really love to work on machine learning, just don't work on only on a basic collab, but make use of real life applications so that is more effective, and to deploy that in a cloud on your live server so that you can reflect those things in your CV as well. So that's how this particular playlist is going to take care by me. Okay, so that's all from this video presentation. Next video I'm going to create a Django application, and then we will be seeing how these applications are going to work truly. Okay, until then, have a nice time. Bye bye.